Do you guys remember that story we did where the Suicide Squad tried to put General Zod on the team and then he burned a hole in his own head and then Cyborg Superman showed up and rescued him and took him off so he can go fight against Superman? Bet you were wondering when we were going to continue. That's this video. Superman Revenge. It's time for Superman and the Super Family to fight against all of the classic villains at once. Our story begins on Mongol's war world where he finally defeats his greatest enemy, Superman. But as Mongol brings the axe down on Clark's neck, he hears a voice calling out to him. Outside of the Black Mercy, the Eradicator tells him that Superman has left him enslaved by a dream. There is much need for him, provided he has a thirst for revenge. A short while later, Mongol, along with the Eradicator and Blanc, appear at the destroyed Himalayan refuge in search of a very powerful item, the Oblivion Stone. As the three pull away the debris to find it, Mongol shouts, "There it is. All of its potential power is mine." Eradicator tells him, "No, it is our leader's." And Mongol responds telling him, "I care not for a leader that I have never met." Eradicator tells him that he will think differently once he is face to face with him. Meanwhile, in Metropolis, Clark and Lois finish looking at their new apartment when Clark hears something. Lois asks what's the matter, and Clark runs off telling her that the alarm in his Himalayan refuge has gone off. He quickly runs to the back alley to change, and then he jets off across the world, thinking that he really hopes Blanc is still in his cell. However, as Clark arrives, he sees that he is already too late. As he touches down, Keelix tells him what happened. But before he can finish, Clark already knows. The Oblivion Stone has been taken. As Keelix goes on, Clark then sees both Klon and Dratania have been killed. Meanwhile, up at the moon base, Blanc brings Mongol and Eradicator to their hideout, and Mongol shouts asking, "Why are we hiding?" A man stands with Metallo telling them that they are not hiding. They are just waiting until the time is right. Metallo asks, "Have we retrieved the trinket?" And Mongol throws it to the ground shouting, "I am not your errand boy, so I suggest you get on your knees and kiss my hand." The man then asks, "Do you not recognize me? No memory of Hank Henshaw, or rather, who I used to be?" Mongol grabs Hank Henshaw by the shirt telling him, "I will tear out your spine, and then we will see if I recognize that." Before Mongol can strike, Eradicator blasts Mongol's hand telling him to put Hank down. Hank picks up the second piece of the Oblivion Stone, saying how he yearned for this moment. As he places the completed necklace around his neck, he then pulls away his skin, showing the metal interior. Once he finishes ripping at his own skin, and he tells Mongol that he once served him as his loyal servant. And Mongol shouts, "Cyborg Superman!" Hank begins to beat into Mongol, asking him, "You told me to kiss your hand?" Mongol tries to fight back, but Hank removes his hand and he fires a blast into Mongol, telling him, "I bow down to nobody." As Mongol starts to get back up, he sees Hank telling him, "Think very carefully." And then he holds out his hand. Mongol kneels down and he kisses Hank's hand, and Hank tells him, "Good. Now to ensure our victory, we must liberate the Kryptonian called Zod." Back over at Metropolis, John looks around at the apartment and he says that he doesn't like this place. Hamilton County is better. They should stay there. Plus, Crypto and Ranger like the farm. Lois tells him that she knows the farm is special, but their work at the Daily Planet is important too. Before she can go on, Clark flies in asking if everything's alright, and John asks, "Do we really have to move?" Clark picks his son up and he tells him that they're going to talk about it later. Somehow Eradicator is alive and he's teamed up with Mongol and Blanc. Lois asks if there's going to be a problem, and Clark says, "With them? No problem at all." And he tells John that he's going to have to watch over his mother while he's gone. As he steps out onto the balcony, Lois says that he wouldn't say that unless, but Clark tells her everything's going to be fine. As Clark leaves, he knows that Lois's silence means that she knows how serious the situation is. A short while later, up at the watchtower, Clark and Bruce begin to scan for Eradicator's energy signals when they get a hit at Belle Reve. Belle Reve is where the Suicide Squad is kept. As they look at the images, they see the black dome surrounding the prison, and Bruce says, "That popped up a little while ago. Wayne took satellites, can't make heads or tails of it." Batman looks at the image and he sees Eradicator trying to break into the dome, and Clark asks, why would he do that? Batman tells him that he'll get down there once the transporter is configured, and Superman tells him, "No, Eradicator is a Kryptonian problem. I'll call if I need your help." Down at Belle Reve, Hank says that he knows that they've prepared for this. "This is the Black Vault space. It's so disorienting." Eradicator tells him, It is a barrier imbued with nullification forces of the Phantom Zone. It is capable of rendering even the strongest mind insane. But for me, an artificial Kryptonian construct, I am impervious to it. I will guide us all through it. As Hank and Eradicator push through, Superman flies straight into the Black Vault space, and then he begins to feel the disorientation. No sense of direction. Up feels down feels up, and there are voices. A voice asks Superman, how could he have let this happen? And Superman asks, Pa? And then a female voice asks, how could you let us die? And Superman asks, Ma? Suddenly the black void begins to change before Superman's eyes, and he finds himself in a graveyard in Smallville. He looks down at the graves of Jonathan and Martha Kent, and he says that he's so sorry. He wasn't there. He's regretted it ever since. And then arms reach out of the graves, and the bodies of Jonathan and Martha crawl out, telling Superman that it is all his fault. He is a failure. As Jonathan's hand reaches out, Superman can hear the voice change, and the grip feels like metal. And Hank, Cyborg Superman, squeezes onto Superman's neck, telling him, I came for someone else, but now that I'm here with you, let's make a bargain. Superman uses his heat vision to push Hank away, and he asks Eradicator, why work with Hank? Eradicator says, it's because Hank embraces the idea of a new Krypton emerging, and Superman opposes to it. Superman then grabs Eradicator and he throws him into Hank, and then the effects of the vault begin to cripple the two of them. Eradicator pulls Hank, telling him, we need to leave. We came for Zod. Superman tries to stand, but his vision begins to change again, and then everyone he has ever loved shuffles towards him, all calling out that they've died because of him. The pressure begins to build, crushing Superman under its weight until suddenly an explosion goes off. Superman hears the voice of Amanda Waller, the leader of the Suicide Squad, telling an officer that Superman probably has no idea where he is. Elsewhere, Zod says, I loathe Waller. She took away my access to the Phantom Zone, and now I will kill her and them. If you're curious about the Amanda Waller Suicide Squad and General Zod storyline, I will give you the link down below, because that one takes place before this, while Superman was dealing with another problem. But anyway, Eradicator tells Zod, just hear us out. We have Krypton's best interest, and yours, in mind. Zod grabs Hank by the throat, telling him, you have no concept of what you want. Do not presume you know my plans. Hank coughs, telling him, I know enough. We can help each other. Zod tells him, fine, but just so you know, the Phantom Zone is my first and only concern. Nothing you say or do will change that. Back at Belle Reve, the chatter that Superman hears begins to come clear, and Amanda asks if he's alright because the Black Vault did quite a number on him. Superman leans up, rubbing his head, telling her, yeah, no kidding. As the sirens go off, Superman can hear them louder than he could before. As he tries to shake it off, he rockets into the sky. Up ahead, Zod asks, if I do help you, what do you get out of this? Hank tells him, revenge. Superman cost me my wife, the thing that I loved most. Eradicator tells him Kal-El has disgraced his house and all of Krypton by diluting his bloodline. Krypton's purity must be reignited. Zod asks, do you mean that Kal-El has? And Hank stops him, telling him, someone's coming. Before Hank can finish, Superman speeds through, knocking into the three of them, telling them, this ends now. Zod quickly flies forward, punching into Superman, telling him, your reflexes have gotten slow and lazy. Eradicator grabs Superman before he can fall, telling him, there's no response. Then Superman opens his eyes, blasting into Eradicator's head. He then grabs and spins, throwing him into Hank, and then he loses track of Zod. Zod kicks Superman into the sky, telling him that Jor-El ensured your weakness when he sent you here. Completely unprepared for someone with the same abilities, but superior. After Hank blasts Superman the last time, Zod grabs him and tells him, you could have been a warrior, a tribute to your people, not some pathetic Earth creature to put down like a dog. With one final punch, Zod knocks Superman down to the Earth, and Eradicator says that Kal-El will return. But as Zod scans the ground, he sees that Superman escaped through the sewer system, and he says, Kal-El is a coward, and he ran. A short while later, over at Hamilton County, Superman flies down just as Lois and John pull up to see Superman hurt. She runs over asking what happened as Superman holds Lois's face, telling her, the Black Vault did something. I can't see, I'm blind. Meanwhile, on the moon, Zod slams his fist to the control board, shouting, I was promised access to the Phantom Zone, and I demand it now. Mongol says, we're pleased with your loyalty, but the time for talk is over. Hank then asks everyone, do you know why we're at this base on the moon? It belonged to Batman. Batman can be a bit paranoid. Here, Batman catalogs information on everyone in case they ever turn against each other. And one thing that Batman found was Superman's Fortress of Solitude. The fortress is composed entirely of Kryptonian technology, filled with things that the Earth is yet to discover. Hank then tells Metallo, how about learning a way that you could live forever? Or Blanc, that you could create a worldwide canvas of death. Mongol, a new war world. And Zod, access to the Phantom Zone. Zod says that the projector that grants access is most certainly inside. Very well. We will play it your way. For now. Over at the Fortress of Solitude, Lois asks Helix if he can restore Clark's eyesight. Helix continues to examine Superman's eyes and says, "Unfortunately not. We have yet to determine the exact nature of Kal-El's blindness." Superman says that all he knows is that it's a result of being in the Black Vault. And Helix explains that not only did Superman lose his sight, but also his vision powers, aside from heat vision, possibly due to it being an expenditure of energy rather than sight-based. Lois hugs her husband, telling him, "You can use the battle suit." And Helix says that that would only be a one-time solution. Lois then says that they can ask for help. Diana, the League, everyone. And Superman says, "As much as I hate it, you're probably right." When suddenly there's an explosion. Lois says that it sounded like something came from out of the sky and hit them, and Helix scans and says that that's not something, that is someone. And Superman adds, "More than one." Outside of the fortress, Zod shouts for Superman to come out so that he can kill him swiftly. "And if you resist, it will be slow and painful." And Hank shouts, "Please resist." After a few moments of waiting, Metallo asks if they're sure that Superman is even inside, and Zod says, "He is not." When suddenly a small object pops out of the door and explodes, and Hank shouts, "Just open up already." Everyone begins to focus their energy on the door, and Metallo says that he can feel the ground shaking. Superman then bursts out of the ground, knocking everyone away, and he thinks that at least he can catch them off guard. He just has to make sure that there's enough time for Lois and John to escape. He closes his eyes and he focuses on each of his enemies' identifiers. Mongel's odor, Hank's mechanics, and with one lunge, Superman grabs Hank by the leg and then throws him into Metallo and Mongol. Eradicator calls out to Superman and he thinks, "Thanks for talking," and then he punches him away, when suddenly he feels a blast from Zod in his back, and Hank grabs him, holding him into place. He punches him into the ground, and then they all take their turns as the villains begin to beat the living snot out of Superman. But before he can even receive the final blow, something jets by, grabbing Superman, and Zod shouts, "He was ours!" Lex, along with the other Supermen and the Superman family, tell him no, Superman is ours. And if you want him, it'll be over our dead bodies. Zod stares at the group and he says, "I thought the son of Jor-El was supposed to be a rugged individualist." And then Hank tells him, "They're all wearing his symbol like a bunch of wannabes." And Metallo quietly tells him, "Look who's talking." Kara tells them that her and Kal are cousins and families stick together. And Lex tells Clark, "Whatever you got tucked away in there, they seem to want very badly. Curious." Zod telepathically tells Blanc to listen, link him to Eradicator, and no matter what, maintain that link. Zod then calls out to Superman, telling him, "I want the Phantom Zone projector. Spare the lives of your friends and give it to me." Superman tells him no, so Zod grins, telling him, "I was hoping that you would say that." Within a second, Zod shoots off into Superman, pinning him to the ground. And as he looks at Superman's face, he says, "That blank stare. Of course you're Blanc." But before he can finish that sentence, Superman punches him off. And then Zod tells Blanc to get ready and pair up with their targets. Hank then fights Kara while Eradicator takes on Superwoman Lana Lang. Eradicator blasts Lana, telling her that Krypton will live again. And no one, least of all an inferior species, will prevent that. Lana turns back to attack, and as she fires, Eradicator absorbs her beam, telling her, "Your energy signature carries aspects of Krypton, which I can take and turn against you." Keenan Kong runs up to Blanc, and Blanc tells him, wait, I don't have any powers! I would never survive a punch from you! And Kong tells him, So Blanc goes on, telling him, "I am a telekinetic though, and I do like to kill people." There's a loud crack, and a giant pillar of ice falls, crushing Keenan Kong. While everyone continues to fight, Superman punches Zod over and over, and Zod just stands there taking the hits. He then shouts for him to fall, so Zod catches the last punch, telling him, "Never." Superman jumps back into the fight, and Zod smiles, telling him, "You're using your hearing to compensate, keying into my heartbeats. But what if somebody uses that against you?" Zod then turns back, grabbing Superman by the head, and he screams into his ears. Back inside of the fortress, Lois and John begin to escape when Zod hears them. He looks back at Superman, asking, "You have a family? You don't get to have a family!" And he begins to stomp onto Superman's head. The sounds of the escape ship leaving can be heard, and Zod says, "They are leaving before we had a chance to meet? How rude humans are!" And he blasts the ship out of the sky. Zod then smiles, telling him, or I should say, were. Kara screams as she lunges for Zod, and he punches her into a wall, telling her, "I tire of you. I tire of all of you." Zod then walks into the fortress, saying, "Jor-El always favored floor safes," and he begins to beat into the ground until he pulls out an object. He looks at the projector, stating, There it is. Now the door can't just be opened, it'll release all of its prisoners. Someone must find them. Superman and the others push inside, and Lex sees Zod and tells everyone to spread out. That weapon looks rather lethal. Zod laughs, telling him, "Oh, it won't kill you, but after a few thousand years of boredom, the day will come when you wish that it had." The light of the projector covers Superman and the others in an instant. They are gone. Zod then turns to Hank and the Eradicator and telepathically tells the Eradicator, "You understand what must be done, right?" Zod then holds up the projector, and as it lights up, Hank shouts, "You can't just send me there." And just as the others, the two of them vanish, and Zod says, "Oh yes, I can. And just know that the events that are unfolding are going exactly as I desire." As the group tumbles through the Phantom Zone, Clark begins to feel disoriented again, and Lana tells him that he's already blind, something worse could happen. Superman corrects her and tells her, "No, the effects of the Black Vault, I can see again." As everyone starts to look around, they see a giant open space, and John Steele asks, "What is this place?" Superman tells him that it is a timeless dimension, a vast expanse of near nothingness, the Phantom Zone. And then Lex adds, "Twisted and cruel, but not without potential." Superman then says that when they passed through, they left their present immaterial states. His body must have began to repair itself. It would explain why being exiled here forever, yet not aging, allowed him to see. Up ahead, Hank and Eradicator watch everyone, and Hank shouts, "Release me at once." Eradicator tells him to be quiet. Maintaining constant contact with Blanc requires a bit of concentration. We must find someone. As the two get ready to leave, Superman flies up, tackling into Hank, telling him, "I will never allow Zod to release his army." Eradicator blasts away at Keenan Kong, telling everyone, "Move aside, we have more important work here to accomplish." Back outside, Metallo tells Zod that he doesn't like very much that they just sent their leader away. And Zod doesn't say anything as he punches Metallo across the room. Mongol tells him, "Metallo might be a fool, but he does have a point." Zod says, "You want a new war world, right? To conquer a planet sooner than later?" And Mongol shouts, "Yes, yes, yes!" Zod then rushes over, punching Mongol into the sky, telling him, "Well, if you're that anxious to get back into space, I will gladly accommodate you traveling across the cosmos." Zod then grabs Kara, telling her, "The daughter of Zor-El's time has come." And then there's a beep. Suddenly the battle suit is activated and it punches down on Zod, freeing Kara. Inside of the suit, John says, "Yeah, I got him! Though I have no idea what I'm doing." The voice tells John, "You are not alone. We will guide you. Now pull the orange lever." John asks the voice, "Who are you?" And the voice says, "Just think of us as a friend that knows the armor well and has your best interests at heart." Back inside of the Phantom Zone, everyone begins to beat down on Cyborg, Superman, and John Steele says, "This seems way too easy." Lex then says, "Hank was a diversion. Our real target should have been the Eradicator." Elsewhere, the Eradicator calls out that he can sense them. Come to him. As he talks, Superman grabs him by the leg and throws him into the surrounding rocks, telling him, "A man who needs an army to be whole is not a man." Superman then grabs Eradicator by the head and he slams him down into another one of the rocks. As they struggle, Eradicator manages to grab a rock, throwing it at Superman's head. Then a female voice tells Clark, "He is not alone." Superman looks up, and before he can say anything, Ursa kicks him in the face, telling him that it is she, wife of Zod, mother of his son, Lord Zod. Back outside, Zod begins to rip the battlesuit to pieces, and he finds John inside, asking, "How?" Lois runs in with Krypto, shouting that he picked the wrong house. Sick him, Krypto! As Krypto begins biting into Zod, he manages to blast him away and turn on the projector. As a bright light fills the room, the portal opens up, and Ursa, Lord Zod, Superman, and the Eradicator all come out. Ursa runs over to Zod, telling him, "You are wounded. We will save this battle for another day." Zod stares for a moment and says, "So be it." And he leaves with his wife and his son. As the three escape, Kara asks, "Shouldn't we be going after them?" And Superman tells her, "The others are our priority. And take Lois and John away. I can't have Lex knowing about them, or Hank." The portal opens up and the four fly out as Hank tries to follow. He shouts for them to wait, but Superman tells him, "I've seen what you can do. I can't bring back a man who's killed millions." As Lois walks John away, John asks who the mystery person that was whispering to him was. Lois asks what he's talking about, and John says that the Whisper Man helped him. That man is Mr. Oz. Lois then says that there was no one else here, but elsewhere. Mr. Oz says he really hopes that she can expand her way of thinking before they meet. Meanwhile, Zod stands with Ursa and Lord Zod, telling them that they were his focus all along. But one day of work, two at most, and this planet will be theirs. With his queen and his prince by his side, Krypton will live again. And there you have it, the conclusion to the Superman arc of revenge. Now, coming up next, I am really excited because Mr. Oz is making his return. And that is the next villain we're going to be fighting. Oz versus Superman, or maybe they're gonna team up. I don't even know. No one truly knows. But we want answers, finally. And as for the situation with Zod going off with his family to go build his own little army and take over the world, when is that gonna conclude? Because he says in the comic it's gonna be like 2 days, but we know that Mr. Oz is next. Is there just gonna be like in the middle of that, General Zod? I don't know, but you know what? If you subscribe to the channel, we'll tell you, because that's what we do here. We fill you in on your favorite storylines. So click the link right here to get a Superman playlist, click right over here to get something recommended by YouTube, and you can subscribe right down here. Now, I'm sorry, Jim, but I'm gonna go back to playing Diablo. It's time for Superman, Superman, Superman. Someone's gonna use that clip.